Greetings everyone, welcome back to another episode of Human Resources in History. This podcast aims to offer insights from 7,000 years of human history to help modern human resource practices. I am your host Makoto, a data scientist and journalist.
Hello everyone, I'm Jin, your co-host. I'm an HR professional and I love history.
All right, Jin, so we talked about the Mughal Empire last time and we learned about the importance of flexibility, right?
Yes.
To me, it was a really interesting story with lots of mixed feelings, because Akbar the Great, he put a policy of tolerance and it worked really well in integrating non-Muslim people. And I think it was Aurangzeb, right? He reinstated jizya and it was for saving the empire from financial problem, and which was caused by his father who built Taj Mahal for his deceased wife.
Yes.
To be honest, I was kind of moved by by this story.
Yeah, there are a lot of stories, beautiful stories, interesting stories in history. So I was moved too.
Okay, so what are we going to talk about today?
All right, so today we are going to talk about the world of tech. Like both of us in tech. So we're going to talk about tech.
Oh, nice.
So, and especially we are going to talk about the latest and greatest advancements of technology. For you, what is the latest technology or, the technological advancement that comes to your mind? What is it?
It's a Gen AI, right?
Generative AI?
That's the only thing I'm thinking about every day.
Exactly, yes. So we're going to talk about the generative AI in this podcast, right?
Cool.
And the generative AI is exemplified by ChatGPT. What kind of a generative AI do you use?
Before I was using ChatGPT, and I'm now kind of shifting towards other chatbot tools like Claude from Anthropic, because I was comparing these two tools and I feel like Claude understands my intention better than ChatGPT, so I'm kind of shifting towards Claude. Like those kind of chat applications I use a lot. I actually am using it for getting inspirations for my baby's name. So they're both fine. Like it didn't give me decisive ideas, but it gave me some inspirations.
Okay, so you're thinking about your new baby.
Yeah, and I don't know. I use those kind of AI applications, especially when I learn new things. Like for example, when I have to read thick technical papers, and of course I read it, but sometimes I can just upload the PDF files and let the app summarize it. It makes it so efficient to understand the papers. So yeah, it's really useful.
Yeah, that's I'm using it too. We have our company's specific chat GPT system, so we use like almost every minute.
I think one of my clients, they asked me to actually create generative AI application for the internal employees because they cannot use ChatGPT, for example. They have a data privacy policy. I think it was since 2022 or something. Everybody started to use generative AI, right?
Right.
But then, what does it have to do with the history?
Yes, of course. Our podcast and blogs is all about the history. So the ChatGPT became popular in December 2022, as you mentioned, and then since then, everybody's kind of buzzing about its potential impact. And we're all trying to figure out how this technology will reshape our world, and like what new possibilities it opens up, and what jobs might be transformed, and then even what it means for the future of work, etc. And many HR departments are also struggling, or they're thinking about how to best support their employees through these potential shifts.
Yeah.
So that's what we are facing today. And so today we are going to step back a little bit and looking at history to build a framework for understanding the impact of new technologies or generative AI. All right. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna look at history and learn from it, and then kind of extract the common patterns, and then build the framework or lenses to look at the current hot issues like generative AI.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. So this is why we're doing this podcast essentially. Learn from history and apply the knowledge and to analyze the current situation.
Oh my God, this is going to be interesting because everybody wants to know how my work is going to be affected, how your work is going to be affected by generative AI, and like what kind of jobs will be existing in the near future. And nobody knows, right? I mean, some jobs are obviously taken and replaced, but you can never estimate accurately how fast or how rapid, how impactful those new technologies will be. So yeah, I think, as some famous saying says, the history will repeat itself. I think looking back at history and analyzing the similar innovative technologies in the past, it would be really useful.
We can, of course, we can't predict the future with 100% certainty, even if we learn from history. I know that we all know the limitation, but I still think this the frameworks that we can get from history will help us navigate the changes with a little bit more insight and preparedness, right? So that's,
of course.
And then, so let me tell you how we going to do. So this is our approach. So we are going to study two groundbreaking technological advancements in history. The first one is the printing press, and the next one is the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so for each event, we'll examine the impact on society and how people and the society responded to the changes. And by doing so, we will find common patterns, as I mentioned earlier. And then finally, we will apply this framework we get from these two technological advancements to analyze the potential impact of generative AI.
Okay.
Is it clear?
I think, you said that you can never predict the future with 100% certainty. And I totally agree, because no one can accurately predict the future. Like, the impact of generative AI is so uncertain. And I'm browsing X on a daily basis, and even like professional AI researchers and scholars, they are saying very different things. And there seems to be no agreement on what the true impact is. So, I think it's important to keep in mind that.
Right, you're absolutely right. But we're gonna still try.
Yeah.
Knowing the limitation, but we're gonna still try by learning history. Right.
Yeah.
And then so we've got a lot to cover. Right. I don't think we can finish all these within one episode. So we are going to spread this exercise across 3 episodes. Just like we did with our succession planning series, like several weeks ago. So in this first episode, we'll be taking a deep dive into the impact of the printing press. And the next episode, we're gonna study Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
And then we're gonna use this framework to analyze the impact of generative AI in the last episode. Is it clear? And are you ready?
I like this kind of series. So, yeah, let's do it.
Great. So, since this is the first episode of the series, let's start with the printing press. So, now I'm sure many of you, including you Makoto, we are familiar with the printing press, right? Well, are you?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah.
It's not really convincing. But anyway, let's take a moment to revisit its interesting history before we suggest our framework. Yeah.
Oh, so, I'm relieved.
Do you know who invented?
That one I know for sure. Yeah.
Who is it?
It was Gutenberg.
The answer is yes for the time being. But we're gonna have some little bit of a surprise later. But anyway, yes, we can say that printing press or invention of it is credited to the goldsmith Johannes Gutenberg. around the year 1440. So in the Middle Ages in Europe. And as we know, his invention dramatically accelerated the process of copying documents.
Yeah.
Before his time, Gutenberg's time, imagine this: every single book in Europe was copied by hand. And monks would spend months or probably sometimes years meticulously transcribing each and every letter, meaning that books were incredibly scarce, expensive, and accessible only to a privileged few.
Yeah, it was expensive. Okay. Because people were kind of handwriting each page.
Yeah. Think about a book with, I don't know, like 300 pages or 400 pages. You have to write by yourself. And how many days or weeks does it take?
Yeah, imagine like you make a mistake towards the end of the paper. You need to redo the whole paper.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they didn't have a erase or delete button. So let me explain what exactly Gutenberg invented, right? So his breakthrough was the concept of movable type. And when you say the printing press, there is not only one technology, but especially what he invented was movable type. And this is how it works. Okay, so individual letter blocks, each one a tiny sculpture of a letter, like ABC. Can you imagine? Like there is individual blocks that represents a single letter.
Like a stamp.
Yeah. And then these, each individual letter carved in reverse on a piece of metal or wood.
Yeah, okay.
And then these blocks could be arranged and rearranged in countless combinations to create words, sentences, and ultimately entire pages of text. Right? So you have a lot of pieces, and then you put on a metal and wood in a reverse way, and to create a page.
It's tricky that you need to put them in a reverse order.
I think so. So I think it took a little bit of time to create create a single page. I'm sure it was still time consuming. But once it was done, the magic happened. Right? So ink was applied to the raised surface of the letters, and the page was pressed onto paper. And then you can create a printed page. And then this process could be repeated to produce multiple copies.
Yeah.
Right? So after printing one page, the blocks would, like you can repeat the process and you can create many copies as you want. So you don't have to write by yourself. And then after you print one page, create one page, then the blocks would be disassembled and then rearranged for the next one. And the process goes on. So this innovation was monumental, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And it revolutionized communication. And in fact, Gutenberg himself used this very technology to print the iconic Gutenberg Bible, and which contributed a lot to spreading biblical teachings and, importantly, the technology of printing itself across Europe very, very rapidly.
Well, so you still need to rearrange the letters every time you print a new page. So it looks like it still takes time, but I guess it was a major improvement compared to handwriting every single page. And I think when you print, for example, like 100 copies of a book, a Bible, you press one page 100 times repeatedly, and then change the blocks and print the next page 100 times, right? So yeah, I think it's a really a big change compared to handwriting every single page.
Yes, you're right. So, by the way, it's interesting to note that Gutenberg's printing press wasn't the first one of printing technology. Right, so this is why I said, yes, in a sense, but not precisely. I said that earlier, right? Because centuries earlier, the first invention emerged in China around the 3rd century.
Third? Oh my God.
So the technology was called wood block printing. So it's not a movable type. This technique involved transferring ink from a carved wooden surface to paper. So, but the thing is, this is faster than hand copying,
Yeah.
but it still required immense skill and time because each page required the carved wood block. So you need to create the wood block for each page.
Oh, okay, okay.
So you
I
can't
see.
really disassemble characters like you can do with a movable type.
But then this existed centuries earlier because the Gutenberg was 1440, right? And then
Yeah.
you said this technology in China was there at around 3rd century. That's really early. Wow.
Yes, more than 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But then, movable type. But actually, the movable type was not invented by Gutenberg. So that is why we can't really say, it might be wrong to say Gutenberg's invention was movable type. Because the movable type actually originated in China again during the Northern Song Dynasty around 1040 AD, which is 400 years before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, this innovation was truly revolutionary because it eliminates the need for painstaking manual copying. Right? And then instead of carving entire wood blocks, printers could arrange individual blocks. Each block bears a single character or symbol to create a text. So
Wait, so it looks quite similar to Gutenberg's printing press, but
Yeah,
why
it's
do
basically
people
the same.
associate printing press to only to Gutenberg?
because of the complexities of the Chinese writing system. So actually, this technology was used, they invented the way earlier than the Gutenberg's invention. And then in fact, the Korean Buddhist document called Jikji was printed in 1378, almost 80 years before Gutenberg's work. But then it didn't really spread, became popular as Gutenberg's invention. Because, as I said, because of the complexity of the Chinese writing system. Back then, Korea also used the Chinese characters, right? We are both from Japan, and we use Chinese characters, so we know how complicated it is. Let me explain why it's complicated. With the thousands of characters, movable type faces a logistical challenge. It's very difficult to use a movable type with a lot of characters. Because you need to have a lot of blocks for to make a page or sentence. Can you imagine?
Okay, yeah, makes sense because Chinese characters has thousands of characters, and then you need to have multiple copies for each block.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's Chinese characters have 50,000 characters. So at least you need to have 50,000 characters.
Oh my god.
And then of course in one page, some characters appear several times if they are frequently used. Let's say some words. Let's say "I" in Chinese, it's "wo," may be used in let's say 10 times in one page on average.
Yeah.
Right? Then you need to have 10 pieces of "wo" character, but the average 10 times. But then maybe one page has like way more than 10 characters. So for that case, you need to have, I don't know, like 30 or 40 characters for one character. 30 or 40 pieces for one character.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, some words, characters are very rare, but then it might appear several times. So that is why, the sheer number of characters required a lot of amount of storage space and made the printing process very difficult.
Okay. Yeah, that was a technology, but not for everyone.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, Western alphabets, with their relatively small number of characters, like 26 for English, made movable type a much more practical solution.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And also coupled with other technological advancements or social advancements, like mass paper production or a growing demand for literacy and education, the stage was set for Gutenberg's printing press to become popular. Right? So basically, the time was ripe for such a transformative invention, and Gutenberg seized the opportunity.
Yeah, this reminds me of Industrial Revolution episode that we talked about a few episodes ago. Like, in that episode, you said that technology was not invented suddenly, and instead it was more as a linear result of many small improvements in tools. I wonder if this is the same for the printing press, because individual technologies like wooden blocks carved in the shape of letters, it's not so crazy advanced. These things existed. So, do you think it's the same?
Totally. I agree that the principle applies to the printing press as well. Like every technological advancement, even the most cutting edge ones like generative AI, it stands on the shoulders of its predecessors. Like generative AI, for example, it simply wouldn't exist without the foundations laid by data science and high performance computing and many other
definitely.
like basic fundamental technologies or mathematical concepts and etc. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I
When you
totally
said
agree.
it, yeah, that's really true. Okay.
Yes. Right.
Interesting. So I guess now we're gonna talk about the framework, right?
Right. I believe we can break down the impact of the printing press and how society responded to the change into these 5 key lenses. Right. The first one is economic dynamics. Second, workforce dynamics. Third, ways of working. Fourth, organizational dynamics. And the last one, drawbacks.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that there are 5 lenses, as I mentioned. This become our framework. And then we can actually analyze the impact, what happened after the printing press invention.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let me
That's
explain
good.
each of these items by analyzing the impact and the societal responses at the same time.
Sure.
Right? And then so that we will understand this framework better. And then we're gonna use this framework for the next episode and then one after.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's start with the first one, economical dynamics. The printing press had a huge impact on the economy, as you can imagine, right? And then some researchers conducted this research, and they looked at cities in Europe that adopted the printing press between 1450 and 1500, and compared them to cities that didn't adopt the printing press. Can you guess what they found?
Maybe the people got smarter in the cities that adopted the printing press.
Well, maybe that's probably that could happen as well. But then what they found out is that the cities with the printing press saw their populations boom.
Oh,
like-
really?
Yeah, 20% at least, and up to a 78% growth between 1500 and 1600.
That is a huge difference.
Yes. So maybe there are a lot of different factors, but the printing press was a total game changer for the economies.
Okay,
can,
but what's the logic behind? Why adopting a printing press contributed to population growth?
Probably one of the reasons is immigration, right? Because there are more business thanks to the printing press invention, right? And then also maybe they have a more like money to support families.
Okay. So people got rich, and then people, make children,
Right.
and then the population grew. And then also people coming from outside
Yes.
to work. Oh, that's so interesting.
And now imagine what that means for HR today. This kind of economic shift would likely to lead to companies investing more, people having more money to spend, as I said earlier, and maybe even more immigration to countries that adapt to new technology. So all of that puts power in the hands of job seekers, and it totally changes how HR has to think about the future. As an HR, it's really important to be aware of this kind of the shifting economical dynamics, because it affects a midterm and a long-term business strategy.
Right.
And then, so that's the first one, economical dynamics. And next up, let's talk about workforce dynamics,
Okay.
right? So think about it. Overnight, the skills people needed to make a living totally changed, and then you had this whole new different professions thanks to the invention of printing press. It's like printers, typesetters, bookbinders,
Yeah.
and it wasn't just them. There was a ripple effect. You needed people to make ink, right? Maybe they are not printers, but the printers need ink. So they needed people to make ink, create paper, and of course, people to sell all these new books printed.
Oh, yeah.
With the printing press.
Yeah, a lot of bookshops, bookstores were born, I guess. And maybe number of teachers, number of jobs at the schools also increased.
I guess so. Yeah, and like publishers, librarians, editors, translators, and authors, and maybe teachers.
Yeah.
Right, so the printing press created a whole ecosystem of jobs. And also the printing press opened up a world of possibilities of people's careers. Right, so with more books being printed, more people learn to read, and as literacy rates soared, new fields like bookkeeping or accounting popped up.
Oh my God, yeah. That's
So
immense
it generates.
effect.
It generates a lot of new opportunities, and then how career trajectory looks has completely changed.
Yeah.
And now, as HR professionals, the shift in the job market is something we need to watch out for too. Right? When new technologies come along, some jobs might become obsolete. Right? So this is exactly what we are worried about because of the generative AI. And but it's really important to have a plan for how to support employees who are affected by that. Maybe we need to provide some trainings, or like upskilling programs, or sometimes we need to let them go, but also we need to move them from one function to another. Right? So this is really we need to think about when there is a new technological advancement.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's the second one, workforce dynamics. And then let's move on to the third point. People are always talking about the what jobs might be obsolete, but actually we need to also talk about how ways of working change. So this is the third point. One of the biggest changes was in communication. So before the printing press, information spread very slowly through word of mouth or handwritten documents.
Yeah.
But suddenly, you had all these printed materials flying around, and the merchants started creating manuals to share their secrets of business, and a revolutionary new system for keeping track of money emerged, aka double entry bookkeeping. Well, this is the accounting method we use nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not familiar with, but
Okay, well, if you learn like accounting, this is the double entry bookkeeping is the first thing you learn.
okay.
And then the first usage of this method was observed in 1494. So this is the few years after the invention of printing press.
Yeah.
The printing press was like this highway for sharing best practices in business. People now share their practices with other people much faster than before.
Oh, it's so interesting. Like printing press not only printed just like Bibles or books, but also it was used to document things at work.
Yeah,
That
many
is
things.
so interesting.
Right?
Wow.
And also, I would also want to mention about the standardization of language use.
What's that?
Okay, let me explain. So Martin Luther, who initiated this Reformation, when he published the 3 treatises, his famous publishing, there were 60 odd languages with numerous dialects in the region, right? Like in where Martin Luther lived, 60, more than 60 languages.
Okay.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And then many of which were not mutually understandable.
Really?
These languages didn't really understand each other. So it's kind of impossible to communicate between them. But then, of course, Luther wanted to spread his ideas. So he did actually not choose his native language because his native language probably might not have been understood by other people. But instead, he chose a hybrid language, the mixed language of different regions, so that his publication would be understood all over the German-speaking regions.
Oh, I didn't know about it.
So this way, naturally, these 60 languages were narrowed down to several languages. It's like a SaaS solutions. When you implement SaaS solutions, right, like a system, you adapt the workflow that's in the system. Without SaaS solutions, before we use the SaaS solutions, like every company has their own workflow and data flow, terminologies, etc.
Every person had slightly different versions of like the
exactly. So like a dialect, right? But then thanks to SaaS solutions, now we use more or less the same workflow, data flow, terminologies across companies. Right? So it created a shared understanding.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a like interesting analogy for me, like SaaS solutions and German's languages in the Middle Ages Germany. Right. So for HR, it's important to think about how new technologies will shake things up in the workplace and how it changes the people communicate. Yeah.
Okay.
And then also what new skills will people need to learn, which is related to the second point, workforce dynamics. So this is the third one, the way of working. And next, the fourth one is organizational dynamics. This is about politics.
Politics,
Yes. And as you know, before the printing press, the church had a pretty tight grip on information. So they are like the gatekeepers of knowledge. And if they didn't like what you were saying, basically you were in trouble.
like even if you believe in the earth is moving, and then that's different from what church preaches people, and you're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what the church says is everything.
Yeah.
So before Gutenberg and then Martin Luther, there was this man from Czech called Jan Hus. Well, basically he tried to challenge the church's authority in the 1400s.
That's a bad idea.
Back then, yes. And then the church didn't like it. So they shut him up, and sadly he was executed.
Yeah.
But then came Martin Luther, and he published his ideas against the church, which were corrupted. This story about indulgence.
Yeah.
So the church was not really exemplary back then anymore. So Martin Luther didn't like it, and then he spread his ideas against the church, and then it spread like wildfire. Of course, because of the printing press. Right, and then of course the church tried to stop him, and then actually they tried to accuse him for heresy. But then it was too late because printing press had empowered people to think for themselves. Right, because there were a lot of copies were made.
Yeah, so the information spread much faster than the church's control.
Yes, and the Reformation was born.
Yeah,
and the Catholic Church lost its political power.
Wow.
Yeah, since then. So this is actually a big one for HR because when new technologies come along, they can shift power within an organization. Like one department suddenly becomes more important, or a new team emerges with a whole new set of skills. And then like someone who were not really remarkable before gain power because the person has knowledge and skills in this new field. right? So it's important for HR leaders to understand these shifts because they can affect power balance within an organization.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand it, you may assign someone who is losing his or her power to an important position. And then, if someone who is losing his or her credibility takes an important role, of course, people are not probably won't be listening to the person, right? Which is not good assignment.
Yeah.
So as an HR, it's important to understand how new technologies will change the political balance in your organization. So that's what I meant about the organizational dynamics. So that's the fourth one, right? And the last one, drawbacks. So
Okay.
this is a little bit different from other four lenses because this is actually a little bit negative aspect of it, of new technology. The invention of new technology brings not only positive changes but also negative ones that HR leaders should be aware of. For example, for the printing press, it became much easier to spread misinformation.
Yeah.
So, this is a challenge actually that HR professionals, or not only HR professionals, but everybody face today, especially with the generative AI. Right now, we can actually create misinformation like unlimited.
Oh, yeah, that's a big problem, actually.
Yeah.
Not only the hallucinations, which is kind of like an unintentional result of the large language models, but then people use AI to generate misinformation, disinformation on purpose, like with a clear
that happens
intention.
sometimes.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like I've seen a lot of pictures on Twitter stating one picture is stating this baby is injured in Gaza, and then like condemning Israel, but that exactly the same image is used in the context of Syrian war, and yeah, it turns out that this image was generated by AI.
It's very important to educate people and not to create this kind of information, of course, but also to educate people to have a critical view on any kind of information they consume.
Right.
And then this is where HR comes into play. They need to educate people.
You creating like a training materials or something like that?
Or provide any training programs.
Yeah.
And then work with other departments like business departments, but also with IT or with the legal team or with the ethics team, etc. And and then we need to collectively create a guideline.
Yeah.
So that's it. These are the 5 lenses. Let me repeat. The first, economical dynamics. Second, workforce dynamics. Third, ways of working. Fourth, organizational dynamics. And last one, drawbacks. So these 5 lenses we can use to analyze the impact of new technologies.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say is that those are the things that people can say now. But people in the 14th century, 15th century, when Gutenberg's technology started to really reshape the society, economy, and the ways of working, people must have worried so much because some people are losing the job and losing the ways of making ends meet. And I would be in a panic mode, definitely. It's quite difficult to kind of calm down and project yourself onto this kind of framework when you are in the middle of such dynamic change. But then I also think that's why I think studying history is good, because history repeats itself and we can prepare for upcoming technological changes. And I think that's what we are going to do in this series, right? Yeah. But at the same time, we should be careful about using frameworks and historical facts for every situation we face today, because the context is different. Like for example, just because Napoleon slept only 3 to 4 hours every night, it's it's not good for us to, follow him. So yeah, I think the context is important.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. Like when I was younger, I tried to sleep like very short, like 3 hours per day because Napoleon did it, right?
You followed him.
No, I tried, but I couldn't. So obviously, I kind of I was sad that I couldn't become like him. But now, it's a crazy, stupid idea.
Well, at least you came to France, so not so far away.
Yes. It's actually a great point, and because the framework is like having a toolbox. I mean, like you don't use a hammer for every job. Sometimes you need a screwdriver or wrench to do something else. So we might need to tweak our framework depending on the situation, and but it's still helpful to have those tools at our disposal because it helps us analyze things faster and with more depth, right? So it's all about being adaptable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, but I'm afraid that we need to stop now. Otherwise, my sleeping hours will be like Napoleon's because I need to edit. I need to edit this
Otherwise,
the audio.
we will finally become like him. My dreams would come true.
It's me who edits, by the way.
Yeah. Yes.
And I don't want to be
talk,
Napoleon.
you edit.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, well, so today we learned about printing press, and we invented a framework to analyze the impact and societal responses of new technology, and we analyzed the printing press technology with the framework. So in the next episode, you said we will study the Industrial Revolution?
Yes.
Okay. And then in the last episode, we will talk about applying framework onto generative AI.
Yes. So we will have a better understanding about this framework in the next episode and the one after.
Okay, sounds very interesting. Then please stay tuned for the next episodes. Thank you everyone for listening and see you next time.
Thank you very much. See you next time.